Bye for now.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News Sunday. Thank you for joining us this lunchtime. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there. I'm Dawn Newsroom and for the next 2 hours we're keeping you company on telly, online and on digital radio. Cracking show coming up for you, so you don't want to go anywhere. Right, the Conservative Party are facing an electoral extinction according to a new poll from Savanta. It's the lowest vote share since the end of Theresa May's premiership and represents Labour's largest lead since Rishi Sunak became PM. Then the Home Secretary has called for a full and urgent explanation after a police car rammed into a cow in West London. A warning, the video we're about to show you contains images of the injured animal though, so yeah, it's not a nice watch to be honest with you, and we've made the nasty bits not there. Right, and history lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. Who on earth thought this was a good idea? But this show is nothing without you and your views, and this is my test remembering this. Let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today, or anything you want to talk about basically, by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay, got it, and join the conversation or message me on our socials, really easy, at GB News. But first, it's the news headlines with Sam.
Dawn, thank you very much and good afternoon to you. It's just after 1 o'clock. The top stories from the newsroom this lunchtime, and we'll start with just an update on that breaking news that we've been hearing from Germany this afternoon, where police in Hamburg have reportedly fired shots at a man who was armed with an axe. These pictures just into us here in the newsroom. Well, officers say the suspect had threatened them with the weapon and that he was also carrying an incendiary device, though it's not yet clear what that was exactly. A major police operation is still underway in the area where the incident took place at a Euros 2024 fan zone in the district of St. Pauli during a fan parade. The attacker is now reportedly being treated for injuries. We understand that security has been stepped up for those championships ahead of a match between Netherlands and Poland in Hamburg. Later, we will keep across that story for you and bring you any more details coming to us from Hamburg as we get it. Meanwhile, the Tories are being warned here in the UK that they face electoral extinction, with polling firm Savanta saying time is close to running out for the Prime Minister. In a separate poll for The Times, Sepsis says the Conservatives could have the lowest ever vote share under Rishi Sunak's leadership, predicting the party will win just 72 seats in next month's general election. Well, it also forecasts that Labour is on course to take 456 seats, surpassing the 1997 landslide, with Reform UK getting 7 seats. Transport Secretary Mark Harper told us this morning the Conservatives are still up for the fight.
Nobody's voted in this election yet, and we also know from the polls, if we're going to quote them, a record number of people, I think 44% of the electorate, haven't yet made up their minds about who they're going to vote for. It's exactly the reason why we come on shows like yours to make the case about a Conservative government with the programme that we've set out for lower taxes, dealing with migration, a fully costed programme for government.
Health is at the forefront of the Labour and Liberal Democrats election campaigning today after accusing the Conservatives of, they say, creating a crisis in cancer care. Sir Keir Starmer's promising to cut cancer waiting lists, to double CT and MRI scanners and to provide 40,000 extra appointments in the NHS each week. Meanwhile, the Lib Dems are proposing a £1 billion boost for radiotherapy equipment, adding 200 machines to cut waiting times. Sir Ed Davey, who's personally affected by cancer, says he also wants to see a legal guarantee put in place that would mean patients can receive treatment within 62 days of an urgent referral. Israel's announcement that it will hold so-called tactical pauses in its military offensive in southern Gaza has been described by some as delusional. Itamar Ben-Gvir, a member of the Israeli War Cabinet, says the army didn't seek approval for that plan before announcing it. The break's expected to begin in Rafah, with activity paused for 11 hours every day to allow for an increase in humanitarian aid. It's understood those efforts are being coordinated with the United Nations and international aid agencies. World leaders have drafted a declaration designed to end Russia's war in Ukraine. More than 90 world leaders are at a peace summit in Switzerland for the second day, seeking consensus on condemning Russia's invasion. A draft communiqué is calling for nuclear plants and ports to be secured under Ukraine's control, for food not to be weaponised, and for all prisoners of war to be released. To sport, and the countdown is on as England prepare to kick off their Euro 2024 campaign against Serbia tonight. Hundreds of thousands of England fans are expected to travel to Germany throughout the tournament to cheer for the national team. Manager Gareth Southgate says he expects everyone to still enjoy the game, despite recent news that German police have been stepping up security. Fans will be asked to drink lower alcohol beer in the stadium and be banned from drinking in the stands. Kensington Palace has released a new photograph of Prince William and his 3 children to mark Father's Day. It was taken by Princess Catherine in Norfolk last month and has been shared with a message from Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis saying, "We love you, Papa." And earlier, the Prince of Wales shared this, his own throwback photo you can see here on your screens, together with the King. It was taken in 1984 when William was just a toddler, and shows him playing football with his dad in the gardens of Kensington Palace. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. Your next update in half an hour. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Sam, and indeed a happy Father's Day to everyone out there, heavenly or otherwise. My dad's up there. Now, let's get straight into today's story, shall we? As you've just been hearing in the news, a major police operation is underway in Germany, with officers firing shots at a person who threatened them with an axe and potentially an incendiary device. It happened on the sidelines of a Euros fan parade in Hamburg. The suspect is reportedly being treated for injuries. A worrying development in what so far has been a very fun and peaceful tournament. I'm joined now by former police sergeant Harry Tanguy to tell us more about what the difficulties of policing these big football tournaments and football games. Harry, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon at very short notice. This is a breaking news story. Harry, can I just have your initial response to what we know so far has happened?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was supposedly, because it's this meant to be a private party, but it's a very public area that we can see from your footage there. It is something that the police will have been expecting either extremists, terrorists, or severely mentally ill people who want to make a name for themselves. So I know that those would have been very strategically placed, those police officers. They will be highly trained, and whilst making their way, and those commanders and the control rooms in taking these calls are assessing that information and intelligence to see, right, is this a spoof call? Can we actually tie it down to a specific location? How many people are there involved? Because that's crucial. What are their weapons? Have they got backpacks, etc.? What nationality are they, perhaps, and that side of things. Then they're looking at the threat assessment. It's real. There's an axe. There's potentially an incendiary device. Whether they found that afterwards or before, we don't know. They're also looking at those units going to the scene and thinking, right, what are our powers and policies here? Because it may not be as they arrive. They need to know what they're going to be doing if it's not as it quite seems initially. And then there are tactical options. Now, if you're in a public area and somebody's got an axe or a knife, if they're very aggressive and mobile, there's amazing how much damage, as we already know from a previous Germany attack, how many people can be hurt and even killed. If you can't isolate that person away from the public or isolate the public away from that individual, then that leaves very few options. And you're also thinking of contingencies. What if they get to a car before those units get there? So they're thinking about it. They're not just running around thinking, right, let's find this guy and shoot him. And what is the most minimum force we can use, which does not put the public or other officers at risk? That's the crucial thing. If they can save his life and negotiate like they seem like they did, they try to negotiate with them. And if they're not getting any answer from that, then there's very little options. So you've got strategic decisions being made, tactical decisions. I was a tactical TA, and I was an operational firearms commander as well. And so I was very much involved as the grassroots and putting tactics into operation, deciding tactics. So it's a complicated thing, but they'll be used to it, and they will be drummed into it with that training. And they won't even think about, oh, am I going to shoot someone? You know, am I going to be in the media? Am I going to be charged with murder? They won't be thinking that. When I was in similar positions, fortunately not actually pulling the trigger, but I pulled the trigger and took the slack off on a couple of occasions. You're almost thinking it's like a training exercises, because the training is so real. It really feels real. So you're thinking, okay, I know what to do now because this is happening. Have I got all the other options? I know what my colleagues are going to be doing. And so it's a good team working. Unfortunately, this is the safest option on many occasions, and the man was shot.
Harry, just very quickly, we are running out of time. What does it mean going forward for fans out there? Will security be increased at other grounds now, do you think?
I think the security will be as high as it ever will be. It just shows, unfortunately, 2 serious injuries, 1 minor injury, I believe, with this. You can't eliminate risk. You can only do that by cancelling the whole thing. So they're going to continue what they're doing, and we're going to be hoping the public bring in the information and intel of anything suspicious.
Brilliant. Harry Tanguy, thank you very much there for explaining the background as to what might be going on out in Hamburg now that there was a potential terror, we don't know for sure, attack just before the Poland-Dutch game, where 40,000 fans are looking forward to the match and having a good time. Hope everyone stays safe out there. Now, we'll bring you more up to date on that story as and when it happens, but we move on. The Conservative Party are facing facing an electoral extinction, according to a new poll from Savanta. It's the lowest vote share since the end of Theresa May's premiership and represents Labour's largest lead since Rishi Sunak became PM. And it's not just the Savanta poll either. The latest MRP poll of 22,000 people would leave the Conservatives with only 72 of 632 seats, giving Labour a 262-seat majority. Joining me now is a GB News political editor, Tom Harwood, to explain. Tom, and you don't need to explain, it's just not a good day for Rishi Sunak and the Tories, is it?
It really is not. So these are two separate polls. The first one, Savanta, that you talk about. Savanta's actually been one of the more favourable pollsters towards the Tories in recent months, having them between the mid and the high 20s. Well, they have them now on 21, a clear trend away from the Conservative Party, particularly since that D-Day debacle from the Prime Minister, where he didn't attend the international event at the end of that anniversary. But equally, there's perhaps a more significant poll that you reference. This is the Survation MRP poll, and this isn't just a poll, it's a seat projection. It's known as multi-level post-stratification and regression analysis, which is a very complicated way of saying this is sort of a seat-by-seat complicated way of conducting a projection, and that way we can learn the variances in the regions and even in the localities of how different places will vote in different ways, and that's how we get this extraordinary number of just 72 seats for the Conservatives. Remember, in 2019, the Conservatives won 365 seats. It would be the most astonishing drop in seat total, drop in share of the vote. It would be the lowest ever seat total for the Conservatives since the party was founded in 1832. It's the oldest political party in the world that has been going continuously, and it would be an almighty drop. And one of the main reasons why that's happening is, according to Survation, there's a pretty high jump in the Reform vote. In this MRP, Reform will get 7 seats to the Tories' 72. But the big beneficial party of this split in the right is the party that comes through the middle, the Labour Party, because the Labour Party in this poll actually has a slightly lower share of the vote than in many recent polls. They're down into the high 30s, 38, nowhere near where Boris got in 2019. Boris Johnson's Conservatives won around 44% then. The Labour Party in this poll on 38%, but because the Tories are so much lower, despite the Labour Party not having the heights of those sort of Blair-style or Boris Johnson-style shares of the vote, that doesn't matter, because the Tories are so much lower, Keir Starmer can actually win bigger on a lower share of the vote.
I'm glad you made sense of that, Tom. Thank you very much. It's just not a good day for them, is it? And as you say, all the polls are pointing in the same direction. So they're all seeing that. That's Tom Harwood there explaining what the hell's going on with the polls, and it's not good news. Right, let's see what my wonderful panel make of this today. I'm joined by author and broadcaster Amy Nicol and broadcasting journalist Claire Muldoon. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time on a lovely Sunday afternoon. Now, you wouldn't want to be Rishi Sunak this morning, would you, Claire? Or particularly any day at the moment.
Well,
recently.
no, because, you know, we've only got, what, 2 weeks on Thursday when the polls open.
Yes.
There is a handful of postal votes in already, we hear. But in the area that I am in, of West London, there's been no one canvassing, no leaflets through any doors. There's absolutely nothing out there. And I'll tell you the 3 things that will be taken away from this general election so far in terms of hustings. 1 is Nigel Farage. Love him or hate him, he's got the headlines. By hook or by crook or by milkshake, he's there. The second thing would be the optic of Rishi Sunak standing outside in the pouring rain announcing the general election. And the third one, D-Day. You know, and that is just the final nail in the coffin. And, you know, the other thing I want to tell our viewers about is the fact that, OK, if this poll is correct and the Tories get 72 seats, Labour 262, do you know that SNP are on target to get 37? That's first past the post for you. That ain't any proportional representation, Dawn.
It is quite astonishing.
It's astonishing.
One of the facts I read today is that no majority party since the Second World War has reached 50% of the vote. So basically, the people governing us don't even get 50% of our votes. We actively vote against the governing party and have done since the Second World War. But, Amy, the one thing I want to pull out with you is all 7 of reformed predicted seats are going to be won from Tory seats that were voted in 2019.
Yeah.
So this is really, I mean, this is strong stuff for reform, isn't it?
I think that this all can be rewound quite nicely back to Brexit, because Brexit essentially asked the public, are you happy with the status quo? And they said, no, we're not. And then the 2019 election said, promise, get Brexit done and things will change for you. And then guess what? They broke their promise. All the promises that were made on that 2019 manifesto, bring immigration down, the big bus, 350 million to the NHS, nothing changed. Living standards arguably got worse. We now got the worst inequality since the Victorian times. And I don't think the Conservatives can win back the trust of the electorate. And I think that's where Reform have made gains, because they're saying, the Conservatives didn't stick to their promises. You can trust us. Trust us. You know you can't trust them. So I think I read one commentator that said Brexit is one hell of a drug, and I think that's really true here, because that is what has destroyed this Conservative Party, in my opinion.
Claire, I mean, none of the G7 leaders out there at the moment are having a good time.
None of them are.
Popular rulers.
None of them are.
Yeah.
None of them are. Globally, some of the shelves are empty. We've had the Suez Canal blocked. We've got the war in the Ukraine. What war? Yeah, it depends which side of the fence you sit on that one. The atrocities that are happening in the Gaza Strip at the moment with the Palestinians and Israelis on both sides. And you just think this is not just about Brexit, Amy, I'm sorry.
No,
and it's quite a futile thing to say that. When you go into that voting booth on Thursday, when on July the 4th, it's quite daunting. You see all those crosses here, and unless you're in the constituency of Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak, you actually don't know who to vote for. And that is the whole thing your viewers will know I've been banging on about voting locally and why MPs should be living in the local area, knowing exactly what their constituents and therefore democratically elected electorate wants from them.
Amy, just very quickly, we are running out of time, not to do with Brexit at all.
Oh, no, of course it is. Look, when's the last time the public opinion was this low since Theresa May? What was going on there?
G7
what was going on there? Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the promises made to the electorate, why they voted Brexit, were not kept. And that's when people started to lose trust with this.
People will actually vote against conservatism by voting reform.
I think that the uprising reform will make us re-examine what the political right in this country looks like. And that's because they did not keep their Brexit promises.
We will be coming back to this one later. There's more to come on that one. But we're running out of time for now. Thank you very much, ladies. Right, throughout the election campaign, we will be hearing from people across the UK about what really matters to you. Today, we meet Bill Green from Devon. Here's what he has to say.
Hi, my name's Bill Green. I'm a sheep farmer from North Devon. I'm in my 70th year, and it's my intention this time to vote Conservative. I am traditionally a Tory. I believe in the freedom to spend as much of your own money as you can, whilst helping those that can't look after themselves. I believe in free enterprise. I understand, that we've been through a really difficult period in the last few years, and I think people just need to remember that. They're fed up. They're fed up. Things haven't been going well, and they almost want to punish somebody, and they want to punish the Tory party. But I think they might be cutting their nose off to spite their face, because I think they're better stick at the moment with the Tories. But I feel that the Tories, despite all the ups and downs, ins and outs, personalities, have managed to get to a place where we now do seriously have a plan. The vaccine rollout here was certainly one of the fastest and one of the most advanced in the world. And it's easy to forget now that the government bought ahead, millions of doses of vaccine ahead of many other countries, and the Europeans were still arguing about how they were going to do it. So we survived that, Who was the first person or the first government to really get behind the Ukrainians? We should feel better about it. We should feel proud that we did that. It's not the end of our world, whatever happens, but we need to accept the vote, whatever it is, on whichever side we are.
Interesting views there indeed. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story and more, go to our website, gbnews.com. Now, it's time to escape politics, and you really can. It's time for our giveaway. You and your chance to win over £16,000 worth of prizes. That's £15,000 cash and a whole host of summer treats. Could be yours, but you've got to be in it to win it. Here's all the details you need.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Indeed, good luck. Escape the British weather, the British summertime. Go for it. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Sunday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. The Home Secretary has called for a full and urgent explanation after a police car rammed a cow in West London. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, a 23-year-old plus-size model called Sarah Milliken has been crowned Miss Alabama in 2024. Marvellous. After a huge win in the national pageant, the beauty queen has been subject to mass online trolling where haters have branded her an unhealthy embarrassment. That's one of the nicer things people have been saying, by the way. Look, you can see pictures of her there. Is this idolising obese models? Is it empowering or is it dangerous, given the obesity crisis we are facing, not just in this country, but all over the world?
This young woman is very, very overweight. And I think anything that makes obesity acceptable because of its health issues, we ought to be regarding it in the same way as we regarded smoking. And we know the figures out last week about the incidences of cancer in young people from processed food, ultra-processed food. We know obesity is costing the NHS and therefore us absolute fortunes. And we know that it leads to all sorts of other problems. So I think we have to get the balance right. Yes, be body confident. Nobody needs to be a stick insect. But let's not celebrate unhealthiness.
You know, she's a lovely young lady. I mean, she's very confident in her body, which is a good thing. However, it's that fine line when we have children going to school who are already obese in this country. How do we draw that line between?
Look, there is no place for hate, I think, in the wider society. I know that's probably an obvious thing to say, but the amount of abuse that this young girl might have had as a child for being overweight and for being constantly overweight, I think if that is a way in which she has a platform to say, I am who I am, then I think that is fine. But you're right.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have said storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to GB News Sunday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, You might have seen this. The Home Secretary has called for a full and urgent explanation after a police car rammed a cow in West London. A warning, the video we're about to show you, and we've made it a lot less frightening than the actual footage, it contains images of the injured animal, so you might be upset. The vehicle hit the cow in Feltham before knocking it to the ground a second time, as you can see there. Surrey police have acknowledged the incident caused distress, as you can see there. I'm sorry if this is upsetting you. And confirmed it's been referred to its professional standards department. Let's see what my panel make of this. Amy, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I mean, I saw this when I got home last night, and I was horrified. It looked horrible. And we have tidied the video up there, so we're not showing the full footage.
I mean,
the cow, by the way, is fine. It's safe. It's injured, but it's not dead.
Which is very surprising when you see the
Yeah, it does
clip.
look. Yeah.
I was alerted to it because I was looking on Twitter, and James Cleverly had issued a statement about this cow, and then I thought, OK, I'll just have a look at the video, and I watched it with my husband, and my husband, who's a bit of an animal lover, particularly an animal lover, he was so shocked. He was like, why did you show me that video? That is awful.
Yeah,
it's just heartbreaking. I think a lot of people have questions for the police. Why was there not a taser? Why were there not other methods available? And then their explanation was, we tried everything. We didn't know quite what to do, and we were in a panic, and that's how it came about.
Surrey Police's official apology is a it's straight out of a PR playbook for me. No accountability, no timeline, no reason why the cow was in the middle of the street at that time, who was filming it, and, you know, the police, it was not an unmarked small police car. It was, you know, a 4x4 truck that was capable of doing a lot of damage. And not only that, but when they hit that calf, the calf went sliding down the road, could have hit anything else and made things worse.
Yeah. It's like, how could you ever come to the decision to do what that police officer did? I think that's a lot of people's questions.
In defence of the people, I mean, because, you know, people have been calling for them to lose their jobs. We don't know the full story.
Exactly.
And they would have been working under the command of a senior officer, you assume.
And not many police officers can carry firearms. You have to have had particular training. We haven't got enough training in the police.
Good point.
Can't do certain things. So maybe they were limited. I do think these out of context clips can be so damaging.
It was filmed by onlookers who said they were shocked and horrified by what they witnessed.
Becoming police officers, because every move they make is being filmed now. I think it is making their job 10 times harder.
I mean, it is true. They can't do right for doing wrong at the moment, the police, can they? I mean, we know there are faults, but, you know, people in knee-jerk reaction these days of calling for people to lose their jobs when we don't know the full story.
No, we don't, and that's part of the reason why the statement that came out from the Chief of Police of Surrey Police, that's why it's angered me so much, because we don't know the full story. And she said that the police officers have referred themselves to their own policing company, whatever, you know, those that police the police. But then you think, well, you know, tigers have been lost from Woburn. There have been other animals that have escaped. The 5 horses that escaped from Horse Guards of the Barracks a few weeks ago. I mean, this does happen. Thankfully, not very often, but there should be protocols in place in order to help deal with things.
It does make me oddly proud to be British, the reaction, though, because it shows how much we adore animals, because...
Right, I'm going to play a slight devil's advocate here, because do we care more about animals than we do children in this country?
Do you know what? Do you remember when that footballer kicked the kitten?
Yes, it is. West Ham player,
on the front page of the newspapers for at least a week. I mean, it does seem something about the animal stories capture the nation's attention, arguably more than things that deserve it.
And we've already discussed James Cleverly, but is there because this is on social media, if you read this in the local newspaper, you know, car hits cow, you wouldn't even flinch, it happens, OK.
Yeah, news in brief, in a local village gazette.
Because it's on social media, I just want to make sure that everybody was complaining about this and getting really upset about it doesn't eat meat, because we kill 12 million cows in this country to eat. So, anyway.
And was that cow running from a field where it was going to go to a slaughterhouse anyway? But I think it was just the method, wasn't it? It was the way the animal was in pain.
We don't know. Unfortunately, we do have to move on. I'm sorry if you have been upset by that video, but we thought it was important.
You're moving on, Dawn.
I'm
moved here, police.
Stop. That's a sacred cow. You can't go there. Sorry. I'm Dawn Newsroom, this is GB News Sunday, and there's plenty more coming up on today's show. But first, here's the news with the very patient Sam.
Very good afternoon to you. It's just after 1:30. The top stories from the newsroom this afternoon. German police have shot a man who was armed with an axe at a Euros fan zone in Hamburg. Officers say the suspect was also carrying an incendiary device. A major police operation is now underway. The incident happened in the district of St. Pauli during a supporters' parade. The Netherlands are playing Poland in the city this afternoon. Kick-off in the next hour. The attacker is now reportedly being treated for his injuries. Here in the UK, Labour insists it's taking nothing for granted when it comes to opinion polls ahead of next month's general election. One poll published in The Times suggests Sir Keir Starmer could secure a landslide win with 456 seats compared to just 72 for the Tories under Rishi Sunak's leadership, which would be their lowest ever vote share. Health is at the forefront of the Labour and Liberal Democrats election campaigning today after accusing the Conservatives of creating a crisis in cancer care. Sir Keir Starmer's promising to cut cancer waiting lists, double CT and MRI scanners, and provide 40,000 extra appointments each week. Meanwhile, the Lib Dems are proposing a £1 billion boost for radiotherapy equipment, adding 200 machines to cut waiting times. Sir Ed Davey, who's personally affected by cancer, also wants to see a legal guarantee that patients receive treatment within 62 days of an urgent referral. Prince William's children have wished him a happy Father's Day with a personally signed message on social media saying, "We love you, Papa." The message was posted alongside a photo of the Prince of Wales standing on a beach with his arms around Prince George, Prince Charlotte and Prince Louis. Princess Charlotte, rather. It was taken by the Princess Catherine on a trip to the Norfolk coast last month. And earlier, the Prince of Wales shared his own throwback photo to celebrate Father's Day, taken with the King. That photo taken in 1984 when William was just a toddler, showing him playing football with his dad in the gardens of Kensington Palace. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay and join the conversation. Or message me on our socials at GBNews. There's loads more coming up. Really packed show for you. We're getting through it, aren't we? This is a good story, though. History lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. Come on, who on earth thought this was a good idea? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Newsroom and you're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, we are still expecting some further spells of rain in the north, but elsewhere a largely drier day, still with the odd shower here and there. But for this weekend, we've generally had low pressure dominating the weather across the UK, bringing plenty of rain and some showers. And it's this area of the low pressure that is dragging this area of rain down across Scotland into parts of Northern Ireland and later on into Northern England. And it could be a little bit heavy at times as it does so. Elsewhere, sunny spells and showers starting to pep up into the afternoon, particularly across parts of Lincolnshire and East Anglia. But on the whole, a largely drier day. And when you catch the sunshine, particularly in the southeast, we'll see highs of 21, maybe even 22 Celsius. Now, through into the evening, we will continue to see those outbreaks of rain sink their way southwards across the country, generally turning patchier across Scotland and staying largely cloudy, and quite blustery winds in the northwest too. Across Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, that's where we'll see that rain continue, still with the odd heavy outbreak at times. But elsewhere, it is generally going to be turning largely dry by the time we reach the afternoon, still with the odd shower here and there, but on the whole, largely dry and starting to see some of that late evening sunshine too. Now, into the evening, we'll start to see generally plenty of clear spells across central and southern England, and that's where it's going to be turning cool, perhaps even starting to see some mist and fog patches develop. But elsewhere, it is going to be largely cloudy, still with the outbreaks of rain, and that's where it's going to be milder too. But under those clearer spells in the south, that's generally where it's going to be a little bit cooler compared to last night. So for the start of the week then, it is generally going to be an unsettled day. Another day of those sunny spells and showers where the weather's changing quite a lot. So 1 minute it will be dry and the next minute you'll see a heavy downpour. But across the south and southeast, that is where it's going to be staying dry for longest. And that's where we'll catch that sunshine too. And that's the best of the temperatures too. Highs of 22, maybe even 23 Celsius. Bye for now.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Sunday. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there and happy Father's Day. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, cracking story. This is going to get you this one. History lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. The advice has been given in guidance on how to diversify, that word, and decolonise the history curriculum, sent this week to academics at Liverpool. But last night, critics lambasted its recommendation as ideologically driven and divisive. OK, brace yourself. This one's going to get heated. Claire, they are saying that you should be guilty if you're white and heterosexual. Not using the long words they use, but that's kind of what they're saying.
But do you know what? History in this country is concerned with more and has been lived by more white people and more heterosexuals, right? And that's the history. I'll tell you something else, Dawn. This is Russell Group University material here. This is Liverpool. It's a really good university. The thing that really got me going apart from this, and I thought it was an AI generation of words input into a system to come up with from something. It's ridiculous. The main issue I have is the verb problematise. I've never heard of that before. So they should be prioritising grammar. Let's get first principles back in there firstly. It's shocking. £9,250,000 kids pay to get up with this absolute rubbish.
I had to read that out, so feel for me. Go on.
OK. I translate the word. Right, the word does sound concerning. The word it's misleading, OK? Because actually, I can't even say it. Problematizing.
Exactly, you can't say it anymore.
All it is, we can all calm down because it's just promoting anti-racism.
It's not, Amy.
It is. Wait. It's just bringing the marginalised voices into the discussion. So
no, what they're saying is look at British history through the optic of
all perspectives. So let's look at it from the perspective of a queer person growing up. Let's look at it from the perspective of somebody from one
but that's not the majority.
Colonies.
No, look, Windrush, definitely. Windrush, definitely. It should be taught as modern history and the absolute disgusting things that happened to the Windrush generation. But that's got nothing at all to do with this statement from academics in Liverpool urging their tutors, urging their lecturers to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality.
I can totally understand that it sounds scary because it sounded scary to me. I thought, how am I going to handle this? But then when I actually looked at the evidence, it's all about unpacking lacking bias, and you have to admit there has been a white bias in history.
No, there hasn't, because the facts...
From a white perspective...
Amy, the facts are, in history, most people in this country are white and heterosexual.
Of course, but then there's still...
So that's the history.
...voices that deserve to be brought into the discussion as much as the dominant voices.
Look, I get it from an academic perspective. I get it from an academic perspective that we can have revolutionary historical seminars. We can have feminist historical seminars. Look at Judith Butler and all the rubbish she can spout and gets away with. And I'm not surprised that you do. I don't. I'm not surprised that I don't either.
You know, she's a voice in the conversation.
Yes.
All perspectives that make us easier to draw our own conclusions. If we don't see every...
But it doesn't, because honestly, the tertiary education system in this country it's got such a left-wing bias. It's unbelievable. And children, young students, are frightened. They're frightened, Amy, to sort out their own opinions in academic seminars that are supposed to be with 6 kids or 10 kids in a room, battling out, teasing out, and they're not doing it.
I think it's about taking into account those voices that you spoke of, but the marginalised voices, so that everybody can have a say and everybody can have a role in the history and the story, because everybody was there. It's a bit like in New Zealand. They didn't used to teach the Maori history within the history of New Zealand, and then they also started teaching it from a Maori perspective. That's decolonising the education. That's decolonising the curriculum. It's not as scary as it sounds, is all I'm saying.
The criticism from other academics, not me, of this is that it is more divisive than it's setting out to get rid of the divisiveness.
Certainly the
and patronising
sound divisive. I can totally see that. But when you actually unpack what it is, and it's challenging biases, it's challenging norms, it's admitting that yes, there has been a heterosexual emphasis.
Because that's fact. But it's not emphasis, it's because the majority of people historically in this country were white and were heterosexual. That's the end of. Are we going to go back to the Tudors where they persecuted the Catholics? Come on.
But you were talking about proportional representation in the last segment. This is basically historical proportional representation. Everybody has a say.
It's not. I think everyone does have a say. I think everyone does have a say, and I think everyone can have a slice of the pie, because a lot of, in terms of gay people's sex back in the 80s of AIDS, that was an absolutely appalling time that they went through, the homosexual population and lesbian population. And it's just historically factual now to move on from that. That is a part of history. It was predominantly white, homosexual men that got AIDS and died from AIDS proportionally in this country. That's fact. That's historic fact.
About that history.
We have heard about it.
Through the lens of a minority, through the lens of a gay man, from a bisexual man, from a black man. Like, that's all decolonising the curriculum is hearing all sides of the argument. Which surely we at GB News love. We celebrate that. That's what we do.
We do, but we're not telling anybody it's bad to be white or it's bad to be...
Exactly.
That is not what...
Amy, it is. It is.
Any case, yes, the lectures are also meant to be held in safe spaces because...
Oh, of course they are.
...can be triggering, as we've just discovered. Any case, a University of Liverpool spokesman said, "We are absolutely committed to an inclusive experience for all our students, reviewing our curricula to ensure content is reflective of cultural, historical and social context is an important part of this commitment." Following recent fruitful and positive conversations with our history department about decolonising the curriculum, a 2020 audit was circulated to colleagues to prompt further thought and discussion. Golly gosh, they use a lot of long words up there, don't they? Well, it is a university. Any case, I'm Dawn Neeson, not using long words. This is GB News Sunday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Now, a new survey, you're going to love this one as well, a new survey from Betfair has revealed that 65% of Scots, in that direction, refuse to cheer on England, but 60% of English football fans will support Scotland. Eek, this is going to get heated. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel, and you really don't want to go too far for this one.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Joint CEO at the UK Sepsis Trust, Dr. Ron Daniels. Very good to see you this morning. Why is it with sepsis we sort of hear very little about it in day-to-day life until there's either a big story or a big tragedy? Why is that? Is it common?
Well, it's astonishing, isn't it? We have a condition here that affects nearly 250,000 people across the UK each year and claims 48,000 lives. And just for context, breast cancer, and I'm not diminishing how horrible that can be, claims 11,000 lives. So sepsis is 4 times more prolific as a killer. I think the reason we don't hear about it is because it doesn't really belong to any particular speciality of doctors. It touches every aspect of healthcare, and therefore there's no professional group to be championing it, which means it needs an advocacy organisation like ours.
My understanding is that it's when your own immune system starts to attack the tissues, but by the time people realise that their temperature isn't just flu or something, they can often be in quite a perilous state.
It arises in people of any age, people with whether or not they've got underlying illness, and it can arise as a consequence of any infection. So it presents hugely differently.
So what do we do?
If you're concerned something is devastatingly wrong, there are 6 key symptoms to look for, and they spell the word sepsis. S for slurred speech or confusion. E for extreme pain in the muscles or joints. P for passing no urine, no water in a day. S for severe breathlessness. I for it feels like I'm going to die, and people really do say that. And then the final S for skin that's mottled or discoloured or very pale. Any one of those 6 in the context of infection, it goes straight to A&E.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to GB News Sunday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, Gareth Southgate says England will need to be exceptional to progress beyond the Euro 2024 group stages as they focus on their opener against Serbia tonight. Joining me now is our reporter, Will Hollis, at a fan zone, I believe. Will, good afternoon. What's going on where we are?
Yes, well, all eyes are on Germany right now, but it's in pubs and bars like the Duke of Cambridge here in Mapley, Nottingham, where the real people are, cheering on England and Scotland in some games and celebrating the Euros, a tournament that brings people together as well as sometimes can tear communities apart. This is one very well decorated pub here in the East Midlands. Beer sales are expected to skyrocket during this period. The group stages alone, the UK Hospitality estimates, will be worth £340 million to the coffers of bars and pubs. Now, that's guaranteed, though, but if England get all the way to the end, £800 million will be pumped into our hospitality sector, which we know the industry is desperate for. While there is a lot of excitement, this can bring communities together massively. In some instances, it can cause a few problems. Here at the Duke of Cambridge in Nottingham, somebody stole a giant inflatable ball which is worth about £1,000. 2 masked men came in the middle of the night. They've reported it to the police, and police say they'll investigate. But it shows that while there are some people willing to enjoy the tournament, get behind the community spirit and celebrate England, some people are just looking to make a quick buck. So the people here say that they'll offer free food and drinks to anybody who can track down that giant inflatable football.
That sounds good fun. Will Hollis there, thank you very much. With Fan Zone ready for tonight's game. Now, we're sticking with the subject of football. A new survey from Betfair has revealed that 65% of Scots refuse to cheer on England. I have a Scottish person with me who's sniggering already. But 60% of English football fans will support Scotland. Let's see what my panel make of this. Should we go to the token Scottish person on the panel first?
Tokenism. I've been described as many things, but a token for Scottishness has never been one of them. Look, I've got 4 English kids. They were all born in England. I live in England. I've lived in England most of my life, actually. However, I do support England when they play. If it's Scotland, England, I will support Scotland. But if England are playing, I support them. They're a home nation, just like I would support Wales if they were playing as well. You know, so it's that kind of thing. But you mentioned Betfred, was it? That was the betting.
Betfair, yeah.
Well, Betfair, Paddy Power do the most brilliant adverts ever, and they've got a Scot in their latest one. Have you seen it, Amy?
Yeah.
The guy wakes up and says, "Oh my God, I had a nightmare that England won the World Cup." And then it's almost as if, oh, Scotland have actually qualified. It's so funny, like the Iron Brew adverts as well. We have got an amazing sense of humour. I mean, look at the result on Friday. That was quite comedic, was it not?
It wasn't.
5-1, and our only goal was actually an own goal from Germany. Come on, do we want to dwell on that?
I was watching the game, obviously, and...
So good luck if you want to support utter rubbish like that.
Didn't, like, 200,000 Scots travel to go and watch that game?
Amy, my nephew was one of them.
Excited about
my nephew is one of them.
Well, they don't get out much. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, because they can't get they can't get through the border. That Hadrian's Wall, Sturgeon's built it back up.
You know, some of my best friends are Scottish, and I am one of those fans that I know I'm not meant to, that I support Scotland. I support the British side.
Yes,
yeah, it's
the home nation.
I mean, I don't really watch much football, so this is me trying to rouse some emotion about football. But I think when it comes down to it, I would support any of the UK countries because you've got more of a chance of winning.
But that's why as well.
But I know there's a long-established rivalry between Scotland and England.
Yes,
and
there is.
It's a bit of a running joke that we will support Scotland more than Scotland will support us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's fact now.
Yeah, okay.
You know, it's fact.
But is that a comment about the feelings between us generally, or is this stuck to?
Well, I think you need to
fit into this one.
I'm not going to maybe a bit of Scottish independence.
I think you need to bring. Are you for Scottish independence, Amy?
No, but I am.
Shall we shut this shortbread Senate right down right now, here?
I just think maybe that's feeding into this story somewhat.
No, I don't think that. No, honestly, I don't think that breeds into or falls into the narrative at all about supporting a home nation. I think it's jocular fun. You know, it's a good old-fashioned argy-bargy, as it should be, having a laugh. It's like I watched Fisherman's Friends last night, that film, based in Cornwall, and it was just fantastic. It was like Padstow, Port Isaac, people getting together, good old argy-bargy, but equally friends at the day.
We have to move on from that. Thank you very much. It's GB News Sunday. Lots more coming up on today's show. But let's check out what the weather's doing out there for you with Honor. Here she is.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, after quite a showery weekend, we can expect to see some drier weather from midweek onwards, but those temperatures are going to remain around average. But for this weekend, we've had an area of low pressure which has been dominating the weather, bringing plenty of rain and showers. And it's this low pressure which is dragging down this area of rain through into northern England overnight. Could be a little bit heavy at times too, but generally clearing across parts of Scotland where we may see the odd clear spell. But the driest of the weather is going to be across central and southern England. Plenty of clear spells, and that's where it's going to feel a little bit cooler too. But generally elsewhere, plenty of cloud around, which is keeping those temperatures up and means another mild night on offer. Now through into Monday morning across the south, that is where it's going to be driest, so we will start to see plenty of sunshine by the time the sun comes up, and that mist and fog generally clearing quite quickly as it does so. Elsewhere, largely cloudy, but the rain and drizzle generally easing and turning quite patchy. The odd clear spell with some sunshine breaking through around the Scottish borders, but elsewhere across Scotland, plenty of cloud and still with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. And then through the course of Monday, it's generally going to be quite an unsettled picture. Plenty of sunny spells and showers. Quite a changeable day. 1 minute it'll be dry and the next minute you'll catch a heavy downpour, perhaps even a little bit thundery at times. The best of the weather is going to be across the south and southeast, where we'll see plenty of dry weather, plenty of sunshine, and that's where we're going to catch the highest temperatures too. Highs of around 22, maybe even 23 Celsius if we see the sunshine for long enough. Then through into the evening, we are going to continue to see plenty of showers spread their way across the country. Once again, staying driest for longest in the south and southeast. May even see further mist and fog overnight too. Heavy showers expected again on Tuesday, but likely to see some drier and even sunnier weather from midweek onwards, with those temperatures remaining around average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Football to do. Thank you very much, Honor. And there's lots more coming up on today's really packed show, so you don't want to be going anywhere now. This is another cracker. A town in America is being sued for being racist, wait for it, against its non-black residents. Stay tuned to find out what that one's all about. It's really intriguing. And could it happen here? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel, and you really don't want to go too far. See you soon.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News Sunday. Hope you're having a wonderful Father's Day out there. Thank you for joining us this lunchtime. Really appreciate your company. I'm Dawn Neeson. For the next hour, I'll be keeping you company indeed on telly, online and on digital radio. Packed show coming up for you. Labour and the Conservatives would both leave the NHS with lower spending increases than during the years of Tory austerity. Ouch. Can we trust anyone with our NHS? Time for change. Then the number of children attending private schools in England has risen despite claims that families are being priced out by Labour's plan to add VAT to school fees. But what does it actually mean for this election? And a town in America is being sued for being racist against, wait for it, its non-black residents. Stay tuned to find out why. But this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today or anything you want to talk about. Right, remember each time by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Hey, gold star for me. And join the conversation or message me on our socials at GB News. But first, let's get the news headlines with Sam.
John, thank you very much and good afternoon to you. It's just after 2 o'clock. The top stories from the newsroom, and first to Germany, where police have shot a man who was armed with an axe at a Euros fan zone in Hamburg. Officers say the suspect was also carrying an incendiary device, with the incident happening during a parade in the district of St. Pauli. The attacker is now reportedly being treated for his injuries. It comes ahead of Netherlands set to play Poland in Hamburg this afternoon. Former police sergeant Harry Tanguy believes the attack is something that German police had been expecting.
If you're in a public area and somebody's got an axe or a knife, if they're very aggressive and mobile, there's amazing how much damage, as we already know from a previous Germany attack, how many people can be hurt and even killed. If you can't isolate that person away from the public or isolate the public away from that individual, then that leaves very few options. So they're thinking about it. They're not just running around thinking, right, let's find this guy and shoot him. And what is the most minimum force we can use, which does not put the public or other officers at risk?
Well, meanwhile, security has been stepped up across Germany for the championships, and England are preparing to play Serbia in Gelsenkirchen tonight. Hundreds of thousands of fans are expected to travel to Germany throughout the tournament. Manager Gareth Southgate, says he expects everyone to still enjoy the game, as police in the country have now been put on high alert for the duration of the tournament over fears of possible further fan violence and terror attacks. Here at home, the Tories are being warned that they face electoral extinction, with polling firm Savanta saying time is close to running out for the Prime Minister. In a separate poll for the Times newspaper, Reparations says the Conservatives could have their lowest ever vote share under Rishi Sunak's leadership. They're predicting the party will win just 72 seats in next month's general election. It's also forecasting Labour is on course to take 456 seats, surpassing the 1997 landslide, and Reform UK expected to get 7 seats. Transport Secretary Mark Harper told us the Conservatives, though, are still up for the fight.
Nobody's voted in this election yet, and we also know from the polls, if we're going to quote them, a record number of people, I think 44% of the electorate, haven't yet made up their minds about who they're going to vote for. It's exactly the reason why we come on shows like yours, to make the case about a Conservative government with the programme that we've set out for lower taxes, dealing with migration, a fully costed programme for government.
Elsewhere on the campaign trail today, health is on the forefront of the Labour and Liberal Democrats election campaigning after accusing the Conservatives of creating a crisis in cancer care. Sir Keir Starmer's promising to cut cancer waiting lists, to double CT and MRI scanners and to provide 40,000 extra appointments in the NHS each week. Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats are proposing a £1 billion boost for radiotherapy equipment, adding 200 machines to cut waiting times. Sir Ed Davey, who's personally affected by cancer himself, also wants to see a legal guarantee put in place that patients would receive treatment within 62 days of an urgent referral. Ukraine has been told the European Union will stand by the country for as long as it takes to secure peace. More than 90 world leaders took part in a two-day summit in Switzerland, seeking consensus on condemning Russia's invasion. They've called for nuclear plant and ports to be secured under Ukraine's control, for food not to be weaponised and for all prisoners of war to be released. Well, President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's now hoping for quick results.
We don't have time for prolonged work. Moving to peace means acting fast. Preparations will take months, not years. So, when the action plans for peace are ready and when every step is worked out, the path will be opened for the second peace summit, and thus for ending this war, for a just and lasting peace.
And in more international news, Israel's announcement that it will hold so-called tactical pauses in its military offensive in southern Gaza has been described by some as delusional. Itamar Ben-Gvir, a member of the Israeli War Cabinet, says the army didn't seek any approval for the plans before announcing them. The break is expected to begin in Rafah, with activity paused for 11 hours every day to allow for an increase in humanitarian aid. It's understood those efforts are being coordinated with the United Nations and other international aid agencies. And Kensington Palace has released a new photograph of Prince William and his 3 children to mark Father's Day. This photo here, you can see on your screens, was taken by Princess Catherine in Norfolk last month and has been shared with a special message from Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis saying, "We love you, Papa." And earlier, the Prince of Wales shared his very own throwback photo, you can see here on your screens, taken together with the King in 1984 when William was just a toddler. It shows him playing football with his dad in the gardens of Kensington Palace. Those are the headlines. For more, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the code on your screen, or of course go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts. Now though, it's back to Dawn.
Thank you, Sam. And what a lovely picture of the royals out. And happy Father's Day if you're lucky enough to have your dad, and happy Father's Day if your dad's in heaven, like mine is. Right, Kate, let's get stuck into today's story, shall we? As you've been hearing in the bulletins, a major police operation is underway in Germany, with officers firing shots at a person who threatened them with an axe. It happened on the sidelines of a Euros fan parade in Hamburg. The suspect is reportedly being treated for injuries. I'm joined now by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley. Peter, thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is shocking news at what so far has been a very peaceful and happy tournament. What do you make of what you've been hearing today about this attack?
Well, unfortunately, crowds of people often attract the mad, the bad, the dangerous and the deranged who want to carry out acts of violence against entirely innocent people. The German police and authorities will have been well aware of this and on very high alert. It would appear that this situation has been dealt with pretty efficiently. But of course, there is a renewed warning to go out to law enforcement, the length and breadth of the world, basically, that during summer, with so many popular events, be it sporting, music, any kind of event where large crowds are gathered, some people sometimes will go there with the intention of causing harm.
Peter, we don't know the background to this, whether it was terrorism or what yet the full circumstances are. But how difficult, as you've been on the front line, how difficult is it as a police officer to maintain safety for a large crowd of people, but also, you know, make sure that they have a good time?
Yeah, the bottom line is there is no such thing as absolute security. It is an absolute impossibility to keep everybody 100% safe all of the time. But of course, there is an awful lot that can be done in order to try and mitigate any risk. And I think the Germans have done that here. It would appear that there were substantial numbers of law enforcement officers available to deal with this matter fairly robustly and fairly quickly. And so often the case is you need a lot of police and you need a lot of security staff, because the more eyes and ears you have got on absolute red alert, then the more likelihood of some situation being controlled promptly, professionally, thereby minimising any damage or risk to life is most likely.
Peter, thank you very much for bringing us up to date on that continuing story, and we just hope that everybody has a safe rest of the tournament. That's Peter Blexley, former Scotland Yard detective there. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, Labour and the Conservatives will both leave the NHS with lower spending increases than during the years of Tory austerity. The assessment by the very respected Nuffield Trust of the cost of NHS policies of both main parties, announced in the manifestos last week, says the level of funding increases would leave them struggling to pay existing staff costs, let alone the bill for massive planned increases in doctors, nurses and other staff in the long-term workforce plan that was agreed last year. Joining me now is GB News Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood. Tom, thank you very much for joining us again this afternoon. Tom, this isn't it what we all kind of expected, that, you know, lots of promises in the run-up to the election, but how are they going to afford it? It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to, does it?
Well, exactly, and this is what the Nuffield Trust has been saying. The numbers just don't add up in either of the main parties' manifestos. We know we've got an ageing population, demands on the healthcare service are growing and growing, and frankly the paltry amount of money that both parties have committed to putting into the NHS won't plug the hole. Now, some people will say that obviously the NHS could spend the money more wisely, that it's not a particularly efficient system, but after all, unless these parties are going to pledge to scrap the system entirely, which neither of them are, this leaves a bit of a hole. The Nuffield Trust say that it needs 3% real-term spending increases each year. But perhaps what's even more interesting is what the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, said this morning in response to this statement from the Nuffield Trust, which is, of course, is a very respected think tank. Here's the words of Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary. He says, "Where I disagree with the Nuffield Trust is the assumption they are making that this manifesto is the grand sum total of any future budgets and any future spending reviews. That's just wrong. That's not the way election campaigns work." Which is a remarkable quote from the Shadow Health Secretary, because he's saying, well, there might be lots of spending that the Labour Party might do that's not in the manifesto. And how would that spending be funded? Well, either they're going to have some growth miracle, some magic money tree, or taxes will rise. And it's interesting because the Labour Party has been put under pressure, particularly on a host of taxes, whether it's fuel duty or taxes on investment like capital gains tax. And interestingly, I spotted the Labour campaign manager, Morgan McSweeney. He's the guy, the power behind the throne of Sir Keir Starmer. He's running the whole show. Well, yesterday on the website LinkedIn, he liked a post from a Labour activist suggesting that Labour should double capital gains tax to raise £15 billion. Well, when he was challenged on this, he said it was a mistake and removed the like. But that doubling of capital gains tax is something that the Labour Party used to talk a lot about. Rachel Reeves put it in speeches back in 2021. Huge questions over what massive tax rises may be in store, despite what's in the manifesto.
Indeed, that's a very interesting line. I read that with great interest myself this morning, Tom. Yeah, when we say we're going to do this, we don't really quite mean it's more of an ambition, a plan, but not a definite plan. Tom Harwood, thank you very much for explaining how we're being told a lot of promises, but the reality might be different. Let's see what my panel make of this one. Still have the lovely Claire and Amy with me. Claire, coming to you on this one. I mean, I read this with great interest, and then, as Tom's pointed out, listened to Wes Streeting trying to get round it somehow. I mean, that non-dom tax has got to pay for a lot of stuff, hasn't it?
Well, if they can get it. I mean, that's the thing. But look, the NHS is on its knees. We've known it for years. We know that any increase in real terms, that it will not do any good to it, because they are mostly now funded than they've been at all since the Nye Bevan set the NHS up. It's incredible. And to think that even the increases that both manifesto for Labour and the Conservatives have shown, that they will not even be able to pay for staff costs. Well, I'll tell you, let's start by stopping the DEI costs at £125,000 for some NHS trusts. Let's start by procuring the drugs for the NHS from one place Did you know that every single trust has got different relationships with farmers, pay different prices to deliver the same service to us? Shocking. And something else that, you know, stop the IVF and stop the menu that we've got in this country for the NHS, where you can pick and choose, you Google your ailment, you present for your first primary carer to your GP, and then the ball has to be set rolling. It's ridiculous.
Amy, honestly, it's just not fit for purpose, is it? We need to do something.
I agree. I'm not sure that Claire's idea of where we can make savings are the right places to make savings and increase efficiency, because D&I, well, that would be like hundreds of thousands. It would be like £1 million a year. So it's a drop in the fiscal ocean, I would say.
Well, there's more than 10 DEI officers,
There
Amy.
is an argument that Labour have put forward about preventative healthcare rather than treating a sick nation, focusing on prevention. You know, the talk of more scanners, more the teeth cleaning in schools, actually, because...
It's abhorrent, Amy. That's down to parental responsibility, not teaching staff that have got degrees, that have studied for years to become teachers.
But the fact is that a child cleaning their teeth at school, that could save them from going to a hospital appointment. Hospital appointments cost on average £400. A GP appointment costs £40. So I'm just looking at places they could save. Also, this talk of capital gains tax, right? Hardly anyone pays capital gains tax. It should surely be fair to be in line with income tax. So the fact that a nurse pays percentage-wise more tax on her income than Rishi Sunak does on his wealth, surely capital gains is an easy way to raise more revenue for the state to spend on things like the NHS. I don't think that's unfair. I think when you hear tax rises, you imagine you're talking about working people. But when you look at something like capital gains or something like, we have 171 billionaires, let's tax just the interest they make every year.
And then...
But that is taxed. That interest is taxed.
It wouldn't even touch the amount of money that they've got.
The NHS isn't fit for purpose.
The interest. Why
the NHS is not fit for purpose.
People
as much as it hates me I hate saying it, but it's really not. It's actually on its knees. It is a fantastic, wonderful thing, right? But ask yourself, where else in the globe, which other country actually adopts the same principles? Not one.
But I think it's an amazing principle that makes us stand out worldwide.
As it was when first
at the point of use.
Yes.
That's a fantastic thing to hang on to, and that's why we're so proud of our NHS. However, we really don't focus on preventative healthcare, which means that our NHS is overused. And like I said, a hospital appointment is 10 times the amount of cost.
And yet we still want them.
So Labour...
And yet we still go to Google and Google our symptoms and say, when we present with our first port of call at the GP, I've got X, Y and Z, there's something wrong with me. What do? They have to refer. They have to refer, and then the clock starts ticking. And the appointment service for NHS appointments is absolutely not fit for purpose either. It's completely ridiculous. I would urge all the big four companies, the KPMG, Deloitte, all the other big accountancy firms, to actually go in as part of their charitable execution and renew and start from first principles the IT systems, the IT infrastructure in the NHS, because at the moment it's cluggy, it's Luddite and it's not fit for purpose.
Still sending paper letters, not emails. That's just...
They still...
Well, they do both.
They still actually use...
They do both.
Fax machines. But what about the COVID corruption bill? We've got a $7 billion we could recoup there if we go for that.
I think everyone would agree that does need looking at. Thank you very much. We are running out of time. But for all the best analysis and opinion on that story, go to our website, which is gbnews.com. Now it's time for our giveaway and your chance to win over £16,000 worth of prizes. That's £15,000 cash and a whole host of summer treats. It could all be yours, but you've got to be in it to win it, as the saying goes. Here's all the details you need.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, Text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, OK, the debate is still raging strong in the studio here, I can tell you that much, blimey. Shush, I'm Dawn Newsroom and this is GB News Sunday and there's loads more coming up on today's show. You're not going to want to miss this, right, OK, this has really got them going already. A town in America is being sued for being racist against its non-black residents. Stay tuned to find out why. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far, we'll be back very, very soon.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Angela, what's on the menu?
Well, the menu today really is the battle between King Charles and Prince Andrew about his home, Royal Lodge. It's gone on for quite a long time now because increasingly the place looks very dilapidated. No paint, raw under the way that the whole thing's built, and it's. King Charles gives him £3 million a year to have safety, and also another $1 million just to keep it going, and it costs about £400,000 a month to keep the place going.
Really?
So it is ridiculous that he's there, and I think it's like anybody. If you get to a certain age, his daughters don't stay there because they stay in London, and you get to when you downgrade. And it's not a big deal, it's not hopeless, it's actually gives you a fresh feeling. And I think it's very silly that he won't do it, but he's determined not to, and the King is determined to, and it seems that if he doesn't listen and make all these decorations properly, that he's going to stop giving him the money, which would be very difficult indeed for him.
Because every 5 years, isn't he meant to paint the outside and all sorts of things?
And the Queen didn't give him much money in her will. It all goes to the heir. So Charles has got the money. And so, you just wonder how he'll manage because he's only got, what he can do.
How he'll manage? He can move somewhere cheaper like the rest of us. I mean, £400,000 a month.
Yeah.
You could go to Frogmore Cottage, which is the offer.
Yes, exactly. That's the offer. And it's all been very decorated. Apparently Meghan did it very nicely. It's much smaller, but it's also very carefully guarded. So he should be able to do that.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually, it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to GB News Sunday with me, Dawn Newsroom, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, we've got a cracker for you. A town in America is being sued for being racist against its non-black residents. 3 years ago, the small town of Evanston proudly became the first local government in the... It's just outside Chicago, by the way. The first local government in the US to start paying slavery reparations to its black citizens. In this case, technically to atone for decades of institutional racism in local housing. But now the council is being sued in a federal court for exhibiting exactly the sort of prejudice it decries. By saying, well, basically, you know, the Hispanics, the white people, they are being discriminated against because they're not getting anything. Amy, I'm going to take a punt at which side of this line you're going to come down on, but go on, thrill me. What do you reckon? This is madness, isn't it?
So this particular town, it's just outside Chicago, isn't it?
It is, a suburb of Chicago. It looks very nice.
The people that were compensated were people that were adults between 1919 and 1969. Now, they lived under a time of segregation. So policies affecting solely African-American citizens, which included redlining, they weren't allowed mortgages, living under segregation in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of the job market. They were literally barred from having certain jobs, going to certain healthcare clinics and going to certain schools. So that is a set of very distinct challenges that white people, Hispanic people, Asian people did not face. So that is precisely why they've been compensated in this way. And I think it's about £20,000 it works out to. I would have given him a lot more.
OK.
How much would you give the people in Belfast, Amy? Both white, but some Catholic and some Protestant.
Are you talking about in sense that working class people didn't have the same opportunity?
It wasn't working class, it was Catholics.
That were under
all Catholics, yep.
Well, I would probably compensate them in the same way.
Well, you see, the thing is, history, we learn from history and we move on, and people evolve. And in order to reach a certain goal and a certain level of parity, which is what we all want to do, and through no way of levelling up, and this is a form of levelling up, by the way, it's nothing else, and it's divisive and it's patronising, I think it's absolutely disgusting.
No,
I really, really do.
The policies...
The way the Irish were treated when they came over to England, the way that Catholics have been treated in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, and the way that some Protestants have been treated, and I'm not elevating any terms of terrorism here, because I do not condone that whatsoever. But there were people in modern history who were discriminated against constantly, and I think it's so divisive to keep going back, to keep reiterating, to keep saying, oh, poor you, between 1919 and 1969, you couldn't get a mortgage. Well, that was wrong. No one's saying it was right. But do we need to be compensated for that? Do we need to level up in that way to make parity instead of realising it was a mistake, to get the facts together and then move on cohesively with parity and without disparity, and let's live our lives. Come on, life is too damn short.
But that's all those arguments would be why I would say this is fair, because if there has been a wrong, then surely we need to have retribution for that, and that's exactly what this is. It's a case of a small amount of money to say, here's your opportunity to have an equal playing field, which obviously between these years...
Why? Why?
Because the past affects the status quo today. So if this was a wrong committed on your family...
In this particular area, the legal challenge is saying that this is creating more divisions.
Yes.
The past is affecting the present, but not in a good way.
But then I think those people must be surely ignorant to what these policies were and who they directly affected, because they only affected the African Americans living in this town. So if there is an opportunity to allow these people to now level up where they were pushed down, why would we put it that way?
But financial compensation surely will not be a compromise or will not be a payment to offset what's happened. But you need to have the discussion and move on.
I think
it's patronising, and I think it is truly divisive. And it's a form of...
Surely by righting that wrong, and if you have the opportunity to do that...
Why fiscally? Why is it always down to money at the end of the day? Why are people's morals... No, it's not. No, it's not. When you're talking about levelling up, you have to talk about justice, you have to talk about virtues, and you have to talk about people being able to do the things that everyone has. Right to shelter, right to work, right to mortgages, right to education. Because if it's money, it's based in poverty, and the way out of poverty is education.
But that's exactly why they're in poverty, because of this situation.
There's lots of people in the US in poverty. 1 in 4 children in Hounslow local authority in West London are living in poverty.
If we zoom out to look at reparations as a whole, I think that the fact that the slave owners were compensated up until 2010, which meant families of the descendants of slaves were paying to compensate the slave owners until 2010, surely the same principles should be applied to the actual victims.
So what would you say to? I mean, this comes. The money comes from taxes. So the poorer Hispanic and white and Asian communities in this are paying for something that they had nothing to do with.
Where these taxes were drawn from, because that's what makes the story quite interesting. From the legal marijuana shops and properties over 1.5 million in that local town.
It's a very wealthy area.
From that local town.
Yeah, so it's a very wealthy area.
What a brilliant way of levelling up.
Well, it is a very wealthy area. So, I mean, a lot of properties are in that bracket, but there are local people paying taxes, whether they're buying cannabis or selling their houses, who are paying for something they had nothing.
Is that area traditionally Democratic or Republican? That would be quite an interesting optic too.
The argument that they had nothing to do with it stands up this time, because it's between 1919 and 1969. So
well, the people paying their taxes had nothing to do with it. They weren't coming up with it.
They were there. They could have been working. They would have been having the education, having the healthcare. They were there, and now they can right the wrong of their community.
Right.
It's just social justice.
OK, well, let us know what you think of that one. Right. I'm Dawn Newsroom. This is GB News Sunday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. But first, here is the news with Sam.
Dawn, thank you very much. Just after 2:30, the top stories this afternoon. German police have shot a man who was armed with an axe at a Euros fan zone in Hamburg. These pictures came to us earlier. Officers say the suspect was also carrying an incendiary device. A major police operation still underway in the city where the incident happened. That was in the district of St. Pauli during a supporters' parade. Netherlands are playing Poland in the city this afternoon, and we understand the attacker is now reportedly being treated for his injuries. Labour insists it's taking nothing for granted when it comes to opinion polls ahead of next month's general election. One published in the Times newspaper suggests Sir Keir Starmer could secure a landslide win with 456 seats compared to just 72 for the Tories under Rishi Sunak's leadership, which would be their lowest ever vote share. Health is at the forefront of the Labour and Liberal Democrats election campaigning today after accusing the Conservatives of creating what they've called a crisis in cancer care. Sir Keir Starmer's promising to cut waiting lists, to double CT and MRI scanners and provide 40,000 extra appointments each week. Meanwhile, the Lib Dems are proposing a £1 billion boost for radiotherapy equipment, which would add 200 machines to cut waiting times. Sir Ed Davey, who's personally affected by cancer, also says he would like to see a legal guarantee put in place that patients receive treatment within 62 days of an urgent referral. Prince William's children have wished him a happy Father's Day with a personally signed social media post saying, "We love you, Papa." The message was posted alongside a photo of the Prince of Wales standing on a beach with his arms around Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. That photo was taken by Princess Catherine on a trip to the Norfolk coast last month. And earlier, the Prince of Wales shared his own throwback photo together with the King. It was taken in 1984 when William was just a toddler. It shows him playing football with his dad in the gardens of Kensington Palace. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts. You can scan the code on your screen or go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now, there's plenty more coming up on today's show, but before I tell you what we've got lined up for you, Nana Quiz Show is on at 3 o'clock and she joins us now. Nana, it's always a cracker, but what have you got lined up for us this afternoon?
Well, I can say that we are going to be talking about the potential of a massive Labour majority and asking, is a massive majority a danger to democracy? Because, of course, if you've got a party with, say, a 200, 300 strong majority, they don't need anybody else to get anything through. So is it a danger to democracy? We'll be asking that. Plus, we'll be talking about beards and bear skins. I think you know what I mean, the big hats they were wearing. They're allowed to wear beards under there too. And I have a very, very special mystery guest Now, she is somebody who is a complete professional. I'm sure all of you will know this woman. She is incredible. I won't give you any more clues, but I can just say now that she's a familiar face. She'll be with us at 5.
Thank you very much, Nana. You don't want to go anywhere. You believe me, you really don't want to go anywhere. Don't miss that one. Nana is up at 3 o'clock. Thank you, Nana. Remember, let us know all your thoughts on the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. Or message me on our socials. We're at GB News. Now, there is loads more coming up on today's packed show. The number of children attending private schools in England has actually risen despite claims that families are being priced out by Labour's plan to add VAT to school fees. But what does this actually mean for the election? All of that and much more coming up. I'm Dawn Neeson and you're with GB News, Britain's news channel. See you soon.
Hello and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, we are still expecting some further spells of rain in the north, but elsewhere a largely drier day, still with the odd shower here and there. But for this weekend, we've generally had low pressure dominating the weather across the UK, bringing plenty of rain and some showers. And it's this area of the low pressure that is dragging this area of rain down across Scotland into parts of Northern Ireland and later on into Northern England. And it could be a little bit heavy at times as it does so. Elsewhere, sunny spells and showers starting to pep up into the afternoon, particularly across parts of Lincolnshire and East Anglia. But on the whole, a largely drier day. And when you catch the sunshine, particularly in the southeast, we'll see highs of 21, maybe even 22 Celsius. Now, through into the evening, we will continue to see those outbreaks of rain sink their way southwards across the country, generally turning patchier across Scotland and staying largely cloudy and quite blustery winds in the northwest too. Across Northern Ireland, parts of Northern England, that's where we'll see that rain continue, still with the odd heavy outbreak at times. But elsewhere, it is generally going to be turning largely dry by the time we reach the afternoon, still with the odd shower here and there, but on the whole, largely dry and starting to see some of that late evening sunshine too. Now, into the evening, we'll start to see generally plenty of clear spells across central and southern England, and that's where it's going to be turning cool, perhaps even starting to see some mist and fog patches develop. But elsewhere, it is going to be largely cloudy, still with the outbreaks of rain, and that's where it's going to be milder too. But under those clearer spells in the south, that's generally where it's going to be a little bit cooler compared to last night. So for the start of the week then, it is generally going to be an unsettled day. Another day of those sunny spells and showers where the weather's changing quite a lot. So 1 minute it will be dry and the next minute you'll see a heavy downpour. But across the south and southeast, that is where it's going to be staying dry for longest. And that's where we'll catch that sunshine too. And that's the best of the temperatures too. Highs of 22, maybe even 23 Celsius. Bye for now.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Sunday with me, Dawn Newsroom, on your telly, online and digital radio. Now, the number... Oh, there's another debate. These two are just driving me mad in here. On Father's Day as well. Hope you're having a good time out there. Now, the number of children attending private schools in England has risen despite claims that families are being priced out by Labour's plan to add VAT onto the school fees. Huge debate. We can't avoid it, can we? The Independent Schools Council said last month that pupil numbers had actually fallen, a sign they said that schools were already starting to see the impact of VAT looming on the horizon. But official Department for Education data published last week shows that the number of pupils in independent schools in England is actually rising. Let's see what my panel... I know what they make of this. I'm just going to put my helmet on and just hide under there. Amy, we're going to come to you first on this one. Amy, stop looking at me like that. OK, Amy, what do you reckon to this? I mean, you know, so, I mean, Labour are right to...
It doesn't surprise me, this statistic, because, as I said earlier, inequality has been rising and standards, apart from the best readers in the world in state schools, have been falling. So if I had money, I think one of the first things you would probably do is send your child to private school, because the 93% of children attending state schools at the moment, the state schools are understaffed, they're crumbling. We're lucky if they're standing at this point. So it doesn't surprise me that more people have been sending their children to private and independent schools. Also, since 2010, the fees have gone up by 50% in real terms. Not in time with inflation, that's after inflation. So I've thought for a while it was a bit of a nonsense to say there was going to be this mass exodus. And indeed, the numbers that were being bandied around the press about 40,000 children having to leave, the research was not done in consultation with the parents, so the research has been deemed inaccurate anyway. But I don't really like this policy. I don't. I think it's created this culture unnecessarily. It's all anyone can talk about. And I think they could have raised the revenue in a lot more of an effective way, such as what we were talking about earlier, capital gains tax. But I equally want to dismantle any misconceptions about the policy. But that doesn't mean I'm a massive fan of the policy.
OK, the problem I have with this particular story is the figures are outdated. They refer to statistics before Labour announced their plans to impose VAT on private schools. So there's
been a fiscal drag.
Irrelevant, yeah.
There really has been. And whilst, full disclosure, all my children went to state schools, extremely high-performing state schools in the west of London. But my son went to an exclusive private boarding school for sixth form under the guise of his rugby prowess. It was the best thing for him to do. And as a parent, you have to enable the best things you can possibly do for your children. I always said to them, I will get you to where you want to be when you're 18. That is my duty. At 18, you become an adult. You must vote. And then if you want to go down the tertiary education route, I can get you there too. I will help support you. I will help guide you. I will help you get there. My third daughter is graduating in July of next year from Leeds in ancient history and philosophy.
Well, I did philosophy.
Uni of?
Wow.
Uni of?
Yes.
Well, thank God she's not aligned with your politics, Amy. That's all I can say.
Not?
No, most dearly she is not.
I was radicalised at Leeds University.
I think you sound as if you've actually written the policy for Liverpool at the moment. Anyway, the reality is, on these figures, there has been some element of fiscal drag. There's 2,000 extra added on. That's all we're talking about, 2,000 pupils. And we need to include the fact that some private schools have closed down over this period as well.
But why is that? Because that could be
because it's a lot of things. It's a lot.
Brexit, Tory austerity.
No, not Brexit, because the international kids are still coming through. Because the fact is, if parents want the best for best education for the children, that they want the best for the children, as I've just said in my opener, then they will move mountains to do it. And can I just say that the likes of Eton have actually become more exclusive than when it was a public school 30 years ago, when professionals sent their children there if they passed the exams. They weren't rolling in money, they weren't landowners, they weren't Russian oligarchs, they were working people who are paying tax. And what we need to realise is everyone that pays tax in this country, and sends their child to public school or private school, they're still paying for the state system.
Oh, come on, you can't say that, though. That's
but that's fact. I can say it, Emmy, because it's fact.
You know, I didn't have a massive fire today, so I'm saving the NHS money.
Oh, did you have a satellite dish? I didn't have a satellite dish.
I didn't have 10 Big Macs today, so I'm saving the
My father wasn't a toolmaker.
We all pay towards services that we don't use. Childless people still pay towards the state system. You cannot say that people who send their children to private schools...
Renters still pay for people to have homes.
We pay VAT on things like toothpaste, toothbrushes. They're not considered necessary things. So why would we pay VAT on private schools? I think it's strange that the VAT...
We don't pay VAT on private schools.
Yeah, that's what we're going to add, the VAT.
No, because do you know what? Businesses, as public schools are and private schools are, will be able to offset that 20% VAT because it'll be a business cost. So again, it's down to the parents that are working hard, that are trying to aspire. What you're doing is killing aspiration and killing social mobility.
Most estimates have said that
Cheers, this is a great Sunday.
The fees will probably only go up about 10% anyway because of things like offsetting the VAT, because of the fact that they've put their fees so much up since 2010 that they're already...
Oh, they haven't. I mean... They haven't. And they've still got a great charitable aspect as well.
I hate that. This is so not true.
OK.
It is true.
Unfortunately... In my town, they say, oh, we have all these playfields. You've taken over half the town.
They were sold... No, the state system sold off the grounds, and they shouldn't have done, under a Labour management.
You cannot say private schools are charity.
Any case...
They exclude 93% of people.
They don't exclude. They will include anyone that's willing to pay.
Also, they're really selective. So
right, have you finished? God almighty.
But I'll agree with you. It will affect the Eatons, the Harrows, all that. More. Unfair.
Breathe. Right, in any case, I'm still Dawn Neeson. I might have forgotten, but I am still Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News Sunday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. It's Father's Day, and dads up and down the country have been enjoying breakfast in bed and opening their gifts with their families. We'll be celebrating our dads in just a moment, so stay tuned. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Helen Worth, who of course plays Gail Platt in Coronation Street, is going to leave the soap after an epic 50 years. I'm joined now by another Corrie legend, Charlie Lawson, whose character, of course, Jim McDonald, lived across the cobbles from Gail Platt for many years. Welcome to the show, Charlie. I can see you looking at those images there, and it has to be said, fantastic acting. In 50 years, many of us just grew up with these characters and basically think they're part of our family. Can you shed light on some of your happy memories of the talent of Helen Worth?
We saw each other every day. She was a consummate professional and still is. This initially surprised me, but then I thought about it, and I'm frankly not surprised. Having spoken to certain senior members of the cast over the last period of time, you know, when Helen joined, or even when I joined, there was a cast of 25. I would put another 75 on that now, perhaps. It's a different animal now, totally, you know, 4, 5, 6 episodes a week. When Helen started, it would have been 2. She lives in London. She's not getting any younger. And she's done 50 years, for God's sake. Nobody can ask any more of that. And listen, Helen, look at that wee smile. God bless you, darling. I hope you have a great retirement. The trouble with actors is that we very, very rarely hang our boots up unless the bank balance is full, which it very seldom is. But also, we live for attention. And when you're in the most famous program on the planet, that attention 9 times out of 10 is an extremely good experience.
The People's Channel.
It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Sunday with me, Dawn Newsroom, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, it is Father's Day and dads up and down the country have been enjoying breakfast in bed, opening gifts with their families, maybe having a lovely lunch whilst watching this, obviously. We've been out and about in Bideford in Devon to hear what people say and what they want to say to their dads.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Hope you have a great day.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Hope you have the best day ever.
Happy Father's Day, Nigel. I hope you have a lovely day.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for always being there. And hopefully we'll have a drink together soon.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Sorry I won't be with you today, but I'm going to make sure to send you lots of photos and hope you have the best day ever.
He's a character in his own way, but he's there for us when we need him.
He's a very kind, caring person. That's about it.
He works really hard for the family and he's been providing food for us for ages now. Ever since I think I was born, and probably before I was born as well.
He can be very energetic, he just doesn't like to show it a lot.
Nigel was there for me when I was growing up through probably my harder years, and he put up with an awful lot of stuff when I was a teenager and stood by me regardless, and I wasn't the easiest child to grow up with, and now we have a stronger relationship for it.
He's never stopped being there for us all. You know, he's a very clever man as well. Dips his hands in a lot of different activities with the kids as well. But no, yeah, he's a really good man. Really good man. Yeah.
Happy Father's Day!
Oh, isn't that lovely? So, indeed, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there and people that are being dads as well. It's not just about fathering a child, it's about raising those children. Let's not forget that. And if, like me, your dad is no longer with us, then happy Heavenly Father's Day as well. There is a picture of my dad somewhere. Oh, God, yeah, that's my dad, Bobby Thurgood, on my wedding day, which is a very long time ago now. As you can see, he was very proud and told me that I couldn't wear black, which is why I'm wearing white. Now, my wonderful panellist, Claire's dad, is coming up there.
There's
Claire,
John.
tell us a bit about that.
Oh, there's lovely John and his wife, Anne. John is in heaven, I'm sure, because he worked tirelessly to make his life as angelic as possible, living with the devil Anne. But there we go.
Okay.
And this beautiful picture is taken in Belfast, in Kelly's Bar, when we went post-COVID to visit two of my daughters. One lives in Belfast at the moment and working there because two of them did study at Queen's. And Stephanie was in Australia, still is in Australia. Oh, and that's who I visited, of course, for the month. But there's John with his flat cap that he gave to one of my kids. And with their baby Guinness, Annie's Guinness, that he was never allowed to enjoy until we just got them together.
And my equally wonderful panellist, Amy's dad. Look, Amy, you haven't changed. You can take that baby and still see the wonderful woman she has become. Tell us a bit about that one.
Yeah, so that's my dad, and I think it might surprise viewers to know he describes himself as bluer than Boris, in fact. And out of Brexit, indeed. Bought the local pub a flagpole with a St George's flag. Out of all my debating partners, my dad is still my favourite political opponent, and I think he taught me so much. And he's
that's
the most
a lovely
generous
story.
and lovely.
Beautiful.
And finally, our
GB News fan.
Super producer, he wrote the word super, not me, Lewis, Dad, Neil. Neil Lewis's dad lost his own dad earlier this year and is currently up in Stornoway on the Isle of Lewis with his family, so that must be a particularly tough weekend for him. And yes, Lewis does dress like his dad. We don't always inherit the best things from our dad, do we? It is absolutely wonderful to share this Father's Day with you. Thank you so much for joining us, and as I said, hope you're having a wonderful day out there. Well, I've been Dawn Newsroom, and this is GB News Sunday, and really appreciate you enjoying Father's Day with us, and we hope you are having a lovely time. And if you've got a dad, give him an extra hug from me, because I miss mine enormously. Now, there's plenty more coming up on GB News, but in a moment it's Fiery Debate with Nana Acquia, and at 6 o'clock it's Neil Oliver with Free Speech Nation. Mark Dolan is at 9. Thank you for joining us, though. Don't go anywhere. Nana's up next, but here is what you're waiting for. It's the weather with Honor. Thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/